All information given in this episode is for educational purposes and should not be tried prior to consulting a licensed physician and or certified state or accrediting bodies. We encourage all listeners to research, talk, and make all inquiries to all of the important professionals and governing bodies before acting on any information heard on the De La Fit podcast. Any action taken by any listener is done by and under their own omission and action, whether conscious to the results, positive or not.
Tuned in to the De La Fit podcasts, 360 degrees of holistic fitness and health, all in one podcast.
Salutations and proclamations. It is I, it is you, it is us, it is we. Together we make up the digital family that is the De La Fit podcast and television show. I'm your host, Philly's #1 son, aka the Body Alchemist, Sun Moon Bay, bringing you another podcast television show excursion. Welcome everybody to the 360 degrees of holistic fitness and health. Have a great show for you today. First things first, if we are having a little bit of technical difficulties, if you're watching this right now and it seems as though it's a little fuzzy or whatever, then it is the internet. I mean, the pandemic has caused many people, as I'm sure everybody knows, period, to use their computers, cell phones way more in parts of times in the day. At times it can just be a little bit more difficult, but these are the things that we're adapting to naturally, which is part of our conversation today. We're going to be talking with one of my friends, fellow podcaster, fellow show host, Scott Stanfield of the Modern Longevitarian podcast, one of my favorite podcasts. You should check them out. If you don't, you should. We're going to be talking about some very interesting things like fear and adapting to fear, as well as just dealing with change. So, Scott, let's see if this is this working. There you are, buddy. Let's see how this goes.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me today. It's going to be a super fun show. It's always an adventure with you and me. We don't know exactly where we're going to end up. And we've done multiple shows together, and it's going to be a fun ride.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I mean, I think it's more to talk about now than ever, because it's so many changes that's going on in life itself, whether it's formerly politics, which we don't really get into too much politics, but I mean, who could really help it?
Right.
Who could really help it? Or if it's dealing with pandemic, which again, how can you really help dealing with these things, or technology?
Yeah, it's like these things are there. They're in the forefront. They're in our face, right? I mean, gosh, I saw something where just the other day, Rush Limbaugh was talking about Texas starting the secession from the Union, right? And we're talking,
they're talking about that again, huh?
Yeah. Well, I'm from South Carolina originally, born and raised, spent my first, 29, 30 years in Columbia, and, when we were, I think it was like 4th or 5th grade, we took a field trip to the State House, right? Mm-hmm. And the State House was actually under construction during the Civil War, and it was hit by cannonballs.
Wow.
Cannon fire. And so there's stars on the actual exterior walls where it was hit by the cannonballs, mm-hmm. and it was and repaired afterwards and then built, and all those things. And that's a great thing. I mean, gosh, the history you have, in being a Philly is, absolutely amazing as well. I mean, that's the thing I miss about the East Coast, being, in Utah and spending time in Colorado and spending time in, in California. And I haven't been back I haven't lived in South Carolina in 18 years. And the last time I was there was a couple of years ago, but it's pretty wild, about all of these things that are going on in our world, our country. And, because of the internet, we're spoiled by the speed of it now, right? Because you're, making this, making like, this is what's happening, but we're also, we are becoming so much more of a one population, right? Because of that. Yep.
Very, very, very true.
Where it's like, when we drove cross country a couple of years ago, my dad was turning 70. We stopped to see some friends in Iowa, and you couldn't tell if it was any other different than either coast. Everybody was dressed the same, right?
That's true.
That's true. Where regionally, people may be dressed differently in different parts of the country. But now it's like the style pretty much transcends any borders, those type of things. So
it's funny that you say that, because the last time I remember I was out in Arizona, and I think when we left, this is years now. This is almost like 20 years ago. So I was a much younger, slimmer man. But we went out there. It was a group of us from work, and I think it was around February. So it's cold. It's East Coast cold. And we went out there, Philadelphia, New York dress, jeans, Timberland boots, the big jackets. And we got there, and all they could do was look at us and say, "Why do you look like that? Why do you look like that? Like, what, don't you have tennis shoes?" It's like, well, right. It's cold where we come from. And they're like, "Didn't you know you were coming to a warm climate?" Like, yeah, but it's a lot different. Like like you said, our mode of dress, the jeans, everything. And you're right. Things have changed so much. One of the things I'll never forget, though, ironically, that you're saying that the difference in the water versus out west versus in the East Coast. We're all sharing a room, and I'm washing up, and I'm washing up, and I'm washing up, and I'm washing. I'm like, why can't I get the soap off of me? So a friend of mine knocks on the door and says, "Hey, man, what are you doing in there?" I'm like, "I can't get the soap off of me." He's like, so the guy who's chaperoning us, because we're all still teenagers, even though we're working.
Right. He
laughs. He said, "It's called soft water."
Yeah.
Get out the shower. I'm like, right. What? Yeah. I didn't know the difference,
Yeah.
So, you're right. Those changes and everything, it's amazing what is taking place via the internet, how we're all, as you said, we're all more one-minded stylistically. Those things are kind of fading out, although there's some colloquialisms that you just cannot get rid of. And that's to be expected.
Yeah, exactly. It's, we are closer than we'd ever think. And the virus and pandemic and all this stuff is teaching us that. I did, my wife pre-ordered some stuff from Walmart the other day. And so I went to do the pickup, and I opened we're blessed, I hit the button and the rear hatch went up, and this is a, it's SUV, right? Pretty big vehicle. Right. And I almost immediately smelled her perfume. I'm like going, what purpose does this serve of me trying to stay away from somebody if everything, I'm supposed to be 6 feet away. I'm probably about 8 feet away, and I can smell her perfume. Right. So what's the chances of that if she had a virus, which I don't really, know all that to be true. Right. But if she had a virus and I don't have a mask on, what's the chances of me actually inhaling that right now? Right. And if I'm smelling her perfume with every breath while this back is open. Right. And it's really, cause somebody like, I could be in California, or Utah, where I'm at right now, fly to Philly, you pick me up at the airport, or take an Uber to your house or whatever like that. And it's like all the people I've been exposed to, like we're one, right? Cause I could be on a plane with somebody who was in Italy or China or, Denmark or Alaska the day before. Right. It's like all this stuff is so connected, man. We're so connected. That's why, building your immune system is so much more important through, proper, the proper way than it would be to take a vaccine or to try to game the system by taking some vitamins or any of those type of things, which they help. But, getting sleep, eating right,
supplements, keyword supplements.
Yeah. It's a supplement. It's not a replacement for things. Right.
Exactly.
And we get stuck into biohacking and all this stuff, and I think even like, the fact that you do so many pull-ups or I do so many push-ups or swing kettlebells or whatever we do, that's a formal way of biohacking, right? Because left without alteration, right, or manipulation, so to speak, by stressing our bodies so much to where they want to build muscle, or the same thing for an endurance runner, right? That's a form of biohacking as well. You're teaching your body to do that, to run all those miles and building your aerobic engine and that type of things. So like if you're taking vitamin C, you're biohacking, right? If you're doing push-ups and things like that, you're supplementing, exercise for the lack of movement, and that's biohacking, And so, we all do that, right? Because we should be getting everything that we need from the food we eat, right?
Very true.
But it's not the nutrients aren't in the soil because of Roundup and glyphosate and Monsanto and all that business that just happened. Genetically modified foods that are modified so they can actually survive. The chemicals can be sprayed on it to kill the weeds, so there's bigger crop production per acre and all those things. And we're ingesting those toxins, and there's so many side effects from that. And then our bodies don't know how to digest a genetically modified food item, right? So there's all those things that go into play with that. And, I interviewed I do more live shows than I do podcasts now. You were actually one of the last podcast interviews I've done when I had you on the show.
Right.
And I'm putting a lot of things on the podcast platform from the live show. Today is going to date this a little bit. Today was the 47th live show that I've done. It's so you think, that's almost 2 months of doing live shows, just 5 days a week. So that's or over that, right? So 9 weeks or somewhere around there. But I interviewed this guy. It's Farmer Lee Jones.
Okay.
His talking about dressing, right? He wears bib overalls, white button down shirt, red bow tie. His thank you cards has the same thing. He's got a trademark on that. His business card is the same, right? Farmer Lee Jones.
I was about to say the same way.
The same.
That's cool.
Tie, right? Now he's got the Chef's Garden. You can go to chefs, -garden.com, because he's been the chef's farmer for years, right? Where this, Michelin starred New York City, DC, Miami, wherever, LA, Chicago restaurant, the chef wanted the best produce they could get. This is the guy. Well, what do you think happened when all the restaurants started closing down? The produce didn't stop growing, right?
Right.
You could get this stuff shipped to your house, right?
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Oh,
and I'm not an affiliate or anything, but yeah, you should order some, man. This is amazing stuff. But he sent me a box, and he was so gracious and so kind. Sent us a box. My wife's like, I'm never going to Whole Foods again. I just want to buy food from Farmer Lee Jones. But this is what he said, right? He said this is so amazing. He said, if the soil has the proper nutrients, the vegetables will have the right proper nutrient, and the people will have the proper nutrients.
That's true.
And so what they do is they test their soil to see where it's deficient in. They haven't got it perfect, he said. And if it's deficient in something, they can find a cover crop as they rotate through the 300 acres, because they don't grow as they rotate through, to put the nutrients in the soil that it's missing from the last crop. Right. So they bought stuff from Whole Foods and all this stuff, and they brought it into their lab. And some of his food is 300 to 600% more nutrient dense than the food that you could buy in the grocery store, right? And they even sort the seeds. They built this own seed sorter, so the seeds that don't fly as far, they're more dense seeds, grow the strongest. So they're picking the strongest seeds, grow them in the best possible soil they possibly can, and then they can ship it to your door. Which is, we had some amazing cabbage, and we had what was the things we had? Cucumbers, cabbage. He sent us some sprouts too, and some micro herbs and micro stuff, right? So it was super, super cool stuff. We ate that stuff. It took us like 10 days to eat it all. It was amazing. Okay. And I'm just saying that because we were talking about supplements, right? What we're missing in our diet, and that can impact our immune system. So imagine if what you're eating is, and I'm going to try to push, specifically Farmer Lee Jones, but he produces that stuff. But what if your eating was 300%, not even 600%, but 300% more nutrient dense than what you buy in the grocery store, right?
If it was 300% more nutrient dense, I think we would see a vast change in our society. And and you and I talk about this all the time. We've going back and forth about growing up, how it was when we were younger. I remember growing up in the inner city of Philadelphia. Even though it wasn't the best, there weren't a lot of premium places to eat. I remember that more because it was more grandparents around, that nature. And the old mentality was, no, we're not going out to eat. I'm going to fix you something to eat.
Right.
So we're going to the supermarket, and this is dating myself, but we're going back about probably about maybe a good 20 years, so more rich, dense nutrient product, parents or grandparents fixing the food, sitting there eating. And one thing I don't know about you, but I'm quite sure you heard this. One thing my parents used to say, one thing my grandparents used to say, one thing I used to hear some of my relatives say: sit down and chew your food. Chew your food. Chew your food. You're doing too much talking. Chew your food.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Food. Yeah.
Right.
It's
and I used to think
important.
they were just exactly. I used to think they were just trying to get us to be quiet, but it's like, no, chew your food so that your body can digest the nutrients that are needed. And I'm going to tell you something, Scott. I remember seeing a lot of athletic young people growing up. A lot of athletic individuals. I mean, just naturally, like whether they would jump rope, whether they play basketball. And this is before the internet took hold, of course.
Right, yeah.
This is before Nintendo and all those game systems took hold. But I remember it was nothing to go out on a weekend and be out at a playground all day.
All day.
Yeah, basketball all day. And not only that, oh man, I never forget. You knew it was serious if somebody brought a football and a basketball to the court. Like you knew, it
was game on. Man.
It's time. Like we're not going home until sun's coming down. You know what I mean? And everybody, that's right. And this is such a drastic change. And I'm not even talking about just pandemic wise. And I think that you touched on that when you're talking about the foods and how nutrient rich they are and what's going on. I mean, we've really gone into a place where I think technologically it's amazing. Physiologically, thank you.
Yes.
It's regressing. It's regressing a lot, in all of us.
Right. Well, one of the things too is I don't know how old you are, but there's just a couple things. Let's talk about this. Is we're old enough now that we're getting old man strength, right? So we're actually getting into our prime with that.
Oh yeah.
My son's 18. We did a little wrestling the other night for a power bar, and I have to say, I'm not in relation to him as strong as I used to be. He's pull-up boy. He can hang with you on pull-ups. He can do that.
Okay.
And he had me like pulling. I was like, oh, okay. How am I gonna? I got to cut off his air somehow. I got to like figure out how to and the strategy comes into play with this instead of strength, right? But my point.
That experience.
Yeah, exactly. No, but my point being is, when I was coming up, when the first game started coming out, I mean, the first one I remember was Pong. I don't know if you remember, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But what was going on outside was more entertaining than that game, right?
Like 100%.
Right. Now the games is like, oh my God, I get to drive this car through the countryside of France at like 100 miles an hour in the ice, right? It's like, this is pretty interesting, right? Where you go, doo-doop, doo-doop. It was like the games we had where you had to go to the arcade to get anything worthwhile, and I was playing Galaga and Centipede and Pole Position and, Miss Pac-Man because I didn't have Pac-Man at my arcade. They had Miss Pac-Man, right?
Right.
That type of stuff. And, was pretty good at Galaga and still, when you happen to go somewhere, it's retro and they have one, I can still, you challenge the high score and stuff like that, back from the day. But it's just, it is, we are regressing. And I actually heard something the other day. James Nestor wrote a book And I'm big on breathing and breath and those
right.
things. Breathing through your nose, and 70% of American adults are mouth breathers, and 50% of our kids are mouth breathers. Our nose has 30 to 40 functions. We're bypassing that. So even it like impacts, we talked about this before, and I don't know if it was recorded on anything, but nitric oxide is released through your nose, which is a vasculator, which is if somebody's having like erectile dysfunction problems, maybe you should tape your mouth closed at night to help get some, dilate some blood vessels in a certain area of your body. Your sinuses, but it'll help you breathe better too. But it might help you some other place. But my point being is, he said that as a species, we're de-evolving, meaning that our nasal passages and our jaws and our facial structure is impeding upon our sinuses. So each generation cannot breathe as good as a generation before. And a lot of that has to do with breathing through our mouth, right? Because we're not using our nose for what it's designed for. So and our palate is kind of going up and impeding into the sinus cavity from the bottom up. And when I started taping my mouth closed just over 2 years ago, the third day, it was literally like I just had surgery and recovered 100% from surgery, and I could breathe better. Like you could never have breathed that good in my entire life, ever. And chronic sinus infections, all that stuff. And I mean, talking about the hack of all hacks, right? I just tape my mouth closed at night with this Somnifix tape. They're on Shark Tank. I've been using them, I haven't missed, but in 2 years, probably total about 30, maybe 45 days. Because Amazon was delayed when we went into COVID and things like that. So I missed, some shipments and stuff like that. But, and after Shark Tank, that sold out. You couldn't get it anywhere. Right. I even emailed the company and I was like, hey, where can I get these? I'm dying over here. And they're like, oh, we're sold out. And you're like, what are you going to do? You're like, we're on Shark Tank. I'm like, I'll figure out another way, I guess. Right. So
you're right.
But my point is that, we're talking about evolution and de-evolution because we're moving less. We're less athletic. We have a tendency to be more couch potatoes, those type of things. And then we're also de-evolving physically because our sinuses are actually not functioning the way our ancestors did in a lot of ways. And we're eating toxins that are in food, which already covered that. Right. Yep. There's toxins in our water, antibiotics in our water, things like that where, I think antibiotics were invented in the 70s. Right. So this is relatively new, right? We're doing all these long-term experiments on the Americans of the world, right? Or, the first ones to do all this new cutting edge stuff. And is actually, we're also finding that it's killing our microbiota, right? Or killing our microbiome and those type of things because, antibiotics don't go, well, I'm just going to kill the bad viruses or bad bacteria.
But it doesn't work that way.
It's just like dropping a nuclear bomb in your stomach. Boom.
That's right.
And it kills them all, right? Then you're like, okay, now I got to replant this whole garden, but you talked about gardening, right? And all those type of things too. At the end of World War II, 98% of produce was produced in backyard gardens. And what I learned, I've been in the restaurant business for 30 years. And one of the things that I learned in COVID is I was asking the question, why are restaurants essential? Right? If this virus is so bad, why are restaurants essential? Right? Because I work in restaurants, right? I get it, right. And I said, but people can just go to the grocery store and buy a whole bunch of groceries, right? Well, I didn't know that at the time that 50% of the food chain supply is through restaurants.
Let's just deal with this because see, it's a few spots that you touched on, and let's start with that one. All right, because working, like I said, now that we're all in our bubbles, to sort of say, working from home, or I'm fortunate enough to be able to work from home. I am not begrudging anybody who is out there working. It's just we're taught now, even if you're outside working, to be more singular. Stay away if you can. So I don't want anybody to misunderstand what I'm saying. But what I'm trying to get to is the fact of while I was working with the youth in this library space that we had, I would talk to a lot of other adults who would come in and were looking for jobs and getting jobs and, looking for work. Because the biggest thing at that time was everybody was looking for work, at least in the area that I was. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget a lot of the individuals, the young people I was talking to, particularly young people in their 20s, did not know how to cook.
Right.
Did not know how to cook. And I'm looking at them and I'm having these conversations. I'm like, well, what are you going to do? Something that our elders often ask us, if we're lucky, at least asked me when I was coming up, what are you going to do if something takes place and you need to cook? And I would often say this to a lot of young people and they'd be like, McDonald's. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, but what if you can't go? Come on now. This is the first thing they was. Come on now.
Right.
Come on. I could just order IHOP, all these places. And I'm not knocking any of these places, not knocking anybody that works there. But what I'm saying and what I think, and I know you're touching on is the fact of 50%. That's a hell of a lot. That's a hell of a lot of people that are going.
It is, right? And here's the biggest thing, right? Because I know my job as a restaurant general manager, director of food and beverage of, 5-star hotels and hospitals and oil refineries that I worked at, and all these things I've done. I've been in charge of the P&L, the profit and loss statement, right? And the whole thing is, one of the first questions is, how can we cut labor costs, right? One of the next questions is, how can we cut food costs? And then how can we cut beverage costs, right? So how can we cut costs? And so, the restaurants, the best restaurants are going to, for food costs are going to be pizza restaurants, pizza and pasta style Italian restaurants, because the flour is cheap and you get a big markup. We're at about a 20% food cost. Traditionally, a steakhouse is going to have the highest food cost. So that's a range of 20 or 40%. So let's pick the middle. Let's pick 30%, right? And what that means is that now they're buying food at wholesale price, which is cheaper than what you can buy at the grocery store. But you can't buy it wholesale unless you're going to Costco, right? You're going to Costco or Sam's Club. That's as close as any one of us normal people are going to get from wholesale price, right? But what happens is, let's say that there's a salad. A salad is on the menu for $10, right? That restaurant probably has, to be honest with you, $2 or less in that salad, unless you're adding on a protein, right? You chicken, shrimp, fish, something like that, right? So what happens is there's one restaurant I worked at. We had I made the chefs double check the cost on this, right? We're charging, it was just a house salad. It was red bib lettuce, the balsamic vinaigrette, and a ribbon of Parmesan cheese. Okay. We're charging, I think at the time we were charging $6 for this salad. That was the value given to this salad, because you could upgrade to a soup minus the $6 and all that stuff, right? Our hard cost on this salad was 49 cents. 49 cents. Okay. So
that's how much you're spending to make it.
Yeah. And we're bringing in $5.51 profit on a salad. Right. Okay. So my point is, when you actually understand the math, that if 50% of the food chain is coming through restaurants, and on average, every restaurant is running a 30% food cost. Okay. That means that 50% of the food that is being purchased by people in America are being paid at a premium and are paying 50% more for that food than they would if they actually went to the store and bought it themselves and prepared it themselves. And I guarantee you, unless you're going to a very niche specialty vegan, organic restaurant, right? Or I say not vegan or organic or something that's super healthy, right? You're getting something healthy when you go there. But if you're not, then you're most likely not getting, because the chefs and the people who are behind the scenes that are trying to get you to buy more of it are gaming the system to make it taste better in a certain way by adding sugar and extra salt and all these different things to it, and buying sometimes the lowest common denominator, cheapest food they can get. So the food cost is lower, so they make more money, and you think you're doing yourself good, but you're probably not.
And keyword you said was the math and the science behind it. We are a capitalistic society. And one thing that everybody's, we got to keep this running. We got to keep this running. We got to keep this running. I mean, look, it's nothing about people working and making money. That's not the problem. The funny thing of it is that with this, you get, if you really are paying attention, and that's why when everybody was really going off, and I don't like to dabble and get into it, and everybody's like, oh, Trump this or Biden this. I was like, and for everybody that's listening to this, I'm making a funny face, and you're probably like, well, wait a minute. Who are you for? Pause. Listen to what I'm saying. The thing of it is that who are they for? Who are they for?
Right.
And I'm not saying that I want to make sure I'm very specific when I say this.
Be careful now. Be careful.
I'm being careful. I'm not touting or downing any political party, but there's a big thing that we have to pay attention to is interests.
Yeah.
Whose interest is really, really, really important. And before we go further into that, Scott, we're going to take a quick commercial. I'm going to do this right now because we got to get some of our sponsors in here very briefly. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to get right back to this commercial right after these messages. Day Life Fit Podcast is sponsored by Mountain Made CBD. Mountain Made is changing the CBD game by offering a line of high-dose CBD tablets at an affordable price. Their products are THC-free and third-party tested for accuracy, cleanliness, and potency. Their products, which ship nationwide, include Build for CBD saturation, Boost for precision titration, Recovery for rest and rehab. With 9 years experience in hemp and fitness, Mountain Made's founders are focused on creating a quality product to help those who live an activated lifestyle. Check out www.mountainmade.life to find out more about how their products can help you crush life. What's going on, everybody? It's Philly's #1 son. Listen, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's a creation tool that allows you how to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a stunning podcast in one place. So listen, if you want to be like me and have your own podcast, go to anchor.com. That's anchor.com. "360 Degrees of Holistic Fitness and Health." That is the Day Life Fit Podcast. Here with my friend Scott Stanfield of the Modern Longevitarian Podcast. And we are having a very intense and I would say eye-opening discussion about, everything. As we always do, Scott.
Yeah. We haven't even got to the fear and overcoming fears and all that stuff, right? Yet.
Let's start. Let's get to that because I know everybody's like, yeah, I thought you were going to get to this. And for everybody that's listening or watching, Scott and I, we always get into these conversations. And first of all, both me and podcasters, what we do, we talk. So it's easy for us to jump in and out of these conversations. But one of the last things I was basically saying is dealing with the fact of, us living in a capitalistic society and dealing with politics and things of that nature. The biggest thing and the most important thing that I worry about and that I see is the fact of, and again, not downing any party, not downing anybody's belief system, but I would like to make sure that those people that we are putting in power have us, the citizens at heart. Not one specific group, not, just wealthy, not just poor, no. The citizens at heart. And I think this has been the most frustrating that many of us have seen in many years. But that's just me, because we could probably go back several years and see more frustration, more anger in society, than possibly ever. What do you think, Scott?
Well, I think there's a disruption going on for sure in our world. I think the internet's bringing that, to us, and allowing, on both sides of the aisle, so to speak, there are, there's you can go on YouTube, and there's shows that have hundreds of thousands of watchers, millions of subscribers to YouTube. So like on the Democratic side, there's Young Turks, right? And talk about Democrats. Then you can go to Louder with Crowder, right? Who had more people watching his show on election night than there was on CNN or something like that. It had like 530,000 people watching at one point, watching his show on streaming live. And he's got a comedy show, and they're watching the election night. Yep. I mean, it's just like crazy stuff, right? And so, there's two things, right, that I want to say, and one of those is, I'm an American, right? Mm-hmm. I was born and raised in South Carolina. You can forget the heritage and all those type of things, what happened between the North and the South back in the 1860s. That wasn't me. I was born in 1972, right?
Right.
I was born after the Civil Rights Act was passed. Was there still tension? Did I see racism? Did I see all those things? Yeah, I did see it, right? But you know what? We all are one, right? You're connected. Right. I saw your ad on the podcast. We are all connected. We are all one. Everybody, no matter where you're from in this world, I would like to believe that we have the same chance. Okay. Now I get it. You live in a communist country, or you live somewhere that's socialist or something like that, that you may not have the chance. But you know what? That's why you can come to America, right? And do those things. And for less than $20 a month, you can have a website, right? You can do your own thing and start your own show and your own podcast. Distributing podcasts is actually free, right? Yeah. I mean, it's literally like Anchor.fm is free, right? To distribute to Apple and all that stuff, right? You just got to you can just use your phone, right? And record straight into that. You don't actually have any funny graphics or commercials or any of those things. Just grab
That's how I started. Started in my backyard.
Started in my backyard. Right? And so that's the first thing is that I believe in my heart of hearts now that we physically have the same chance. Maybe not mentally because of generational cycles, right?
That's right.
That we are not only handed down our genetics, but we're handed down a mindset, a way of thinking, how we make our money, our stress around money, what's possible, what's not possible, and those type of things. So those are the things that hold us back. And when you start looking at the actual data and I haven't got to my second point yet, but the actual data of what happens when there's not a dad in a house, right? What happens to the children in that, and how many fatherless homes we have, and those type of things. How many percentage of people who go to prison or getting arrested and things like that. And so if we could get back to wholesome families, right, doing those type of things, and that, it will give everybody a shot, right? And as the internet grows, I know there's a divide between who has internet and who doesn't have internet. But there's got to be, like, you working with young kids in libraries. You got to be people in schools working with people. We came up with an idea. I wrote a book on sleep, right? It's called Outstanding Landing. And I'm going to tell you a crazy story in a minute about this. I'm going to get my second point. I'll tell you this crazy story. It's called Outstanding Landing, How to Get the Sleep of Your Dreams. And I'm going to self-publish this on Amazon, and I'm going to have an ebook and a version of it as well. So paperback and ebook. And I was, I came up with the idea. I was like, what if I wrote this, because it's around Outstanding Landing came from a quote from Chuck Yeager, who just passed away on Monday, 97 years old. And to write a children's book using a plane as the example of how you get your best sleep. right?
Okay.
Putting down your landing gear, which it means that, I mean, obviously we would know brush your teeth and things like that, but you would, stop eating 2-3 hours before you go to bed. You would, stop looking at your device for blue light exposure, between, 2 to at least 2 hours before bed. You wouldn't have any intense play, like running around or anything like that within an hour of going to bed, things like that. So, and then also have a little journal in the back that's called Air Traffic Tower Log, to allow them to write down what's going on in their head, like a diary or a journal, so they can clear their head before they go to sleep, right? So you're teaching them to clear the runway, which is their brain and all those type of things, right? And so if we can, because there's a renaissance, there's also this like enlightenment movement that's going on how to handle our emotions, how to have self-regulation, health-wise, things like that. I mean, you and I, or got shows on health, right? There's normal people talking about it. There's an enlightenment going on, right? And I start with mindset. So my point is that we can get the message to our children and change the generational cycles that are happening, right? That's what the thing to fix that problem, which is that, yes, we physically may have the same chance of making it, but mentally, we're not all the right seeds are planted, and we got a lot of limiting beliefs, negative self-talk, those types of things that we can overcome. The second thing, our Constitution and our country was created off one of the philosophies of not one, but multiple people of the time, but one of was a French philosopher. His name was Voltaire. Okay. And this and I'll get to my point. And Voltaire said something along these lines. He was summed up this way. When I was in high school, he was accredited to this quote, but now it's come out that a writer wrote this about him, summing up his philosophy. And that is this: I may not agree with what you say, but I will fight to the death for your right to say it.
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
So what happened, going back to the political piece of this, right? What are their interests? What are those type of things? I have seen and I've witnessed when somebody's flying a flag, somebody drives by and drops the F-bomb, F you, with the other rest of the letters attached to that.
Right.
Children around. I've never in my life seen the division, the anger, like, if you like another team, I'm going to tell you to F off. It was almost like I was back in New York and the Jets and the Giants were playing each other, right? Or something like that. It's like,
that can be brutal. That can be brutal, Scott. You got to be careful on that one.
I did live in New York when the Yankees were playing the Braves in the World Series. My wife and I had gone and I'm from South Carolina. That's when the Braves were playing on TBS all the time. So I was a Braves fan, right? And I have some African, Native American, heritage. And my great grandmother was full-blooded Indian, right? So I pull for the Braves, and then whatever they call the team in Washington now for football. I don't even know what their mascot is now, but it used to be the Redskins when I watched them, right? So
right,
it's the Washington team, right? But my point is I was like, we went to watch the Rangers play in Madison Square Garden, right? Mm-hmm. And the World Series was going on. It was fine. And I was like, let's go watch the World Series. She's like, no, you can get your butt beat, right? You can't do that. So we didn't go watch. We just went home, right? We had to get on the Long Island Railroad. We went home and did all that stuff. So, but the thing is that, as an American, for the way I look at it, knowing all of those things, is that I have respect for the fact that you have a different opinion of me. It's fine with me, right? I'm not one of those people that's going to say that no matter, let's say Biden becomes president, right? Or Trump's president now. I'm not one of those people that says they're not my president. I'm an American. They're the American president. Therefore, they are my president. It just they may not have the same philosophies or outlook on life that I do. I like less taxes. I like to keep more of the money that I made, right? Right. But I also like the fact some of the things that happen with the democratic world, what they do and what they have in part of our society. I think a good blend of those. But what happens is when you go from Obama to Trump, and now back to Biden, it just swings us back and forth on this pendulum. And it's like, instead of like, if we could just like have this bipartisan view, right, or meet somewhere close to the middle and keep some consistency in our culture, right?
Keyword consistency.
Consistency. So we all can build some freaking momentum, right? Because what happens is we got to play by these rules over here, and then play by these rules over here. It just swings us one way or the other. And our society is like, now I got to pay more taxes, and now I got to take the time to adjust what I take out of my W-2 or W-4 or all these type of things, right? Versus just like, hey, let's
move forward.
Move forward, and do those things.
You know what, Scott? You said something that I think is really something, and I'm gonna segue this into our adaptation dealing with fear and apprehension. So I have a friend and works in law enforcement. I actually have relatives that work in law enforcement as well. And we got into the conversation, and the conversation was basically, how do you feel about law enforcement? How do you feel about what's going on? And, my standpoint is that I said, we can talk about prejudice all day long. We can talk about quote unquote racism as they claim it, or I should say, as it's claimed. I have my own viewpoint on racism. I believe there's one race. I know a lot of people might differ and say, oh, no, blah, 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 blah. But there's a human race, and there's many cultures within the human race. That's how I choose to believe. That's how I feel. So and I've said this before on podcasts with you and I, if individuals come and, until I see a bear run out or a group of bears run out and attack us all, and, then we can claim some racism, you know what I mean? But the prejudice that exists and what I've seen, I'm like, there is a systematic teaching of certain types of thinking, and it makes no difference what the system is, the system of what the form is, the system of it's us against them is one of the most basic patterns that is taught.
Yep.
Now, I'm not going to say there's not a right and a wrong, because there is. That's part of the balance of life. But when we start doing the fact of it's a us against them, that mentality does not breed overall a constructive building. It doesn't do that, because again, one thing that many of us, if in practicing different religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs, is that the Creator created all of us. So there's a problem. Right. Why is there us against them? Right. Why does it have to continuously be an us against them? What I found in researching in history is that specifically there is a us, which is normally a group somewhere within a larger group that's like, it's an us that wants to control all of them. Yes. And it's done through many different ways. It's done through manipulation. It's done through what you call it, sexism. It's done through, as people will call it, racism. It's done through poor and rich. It's done in a specific way to use the old 52 fake out. My hand is here, but you can't see what my left hand is doing. Right. And then if I hit you in the back of the head and I say, hey, he did it, while you two are going back and forth, you'll never see me going into your bags. Right. And that's what I see. A lot of things are going on now. Right. Are there things that have taken place interculturally? Yes. These are things that need to be handled. They need to be addressed. They need to be dealt with systematically. How do we deal with these situations where it comes to these different, like law enforcement? I've said it before. One, stop thinking that you are the law, and maybe think more of you are the law enforcer. Mm-hmm. I've had different individuals come about, and say, well, I don't agree with this. That's like you said, you're all well and you're right. But there's a certain thinking that comes about with that badge and shield. And believe me, I have known great people who wear the badge and shield. I've also known people that aren't too cool. Right. And what I've seen is that no matter what your culture is, at some point that thinking that can sometimes come behind that trumps whoever you are.
Right.
Maybe you might not be treated in a certain way here or there, but the bottom line is that sometimes there are individuals that think because they're wearing that shield, it doesn't matter what you look like, what your culture is, I'm better than you because I have the badge and shield.
Right.
You know, so, and I don't want, I'm gonna let you chime in a second. Let me just finish this real quick.
Go ahead.
I don't want any of the officers who are towing the mark to feel that I'm not downing law enforcement. I'm just saying that there is a larger thought pattern that even within law enforcement, whether it's on the state level and federal level, how is it that at times there is an odds between the two, but you're still supposed to be about law enforcement? This is the problem. This is the us against them.
Right.
And that's what we need to deal with. And as far as fear, once we start dealing with the facts that, yes, that is a system of teaching and thought that needs to be dealt with and taken care of, then we can start to also deal with the fact of where's the fear? The fear is I have no power based on what you can do to me. Or what the situation was, you know, whether it's I don't have enough money to feed my family, whether it's, you know, law enforcement, I feel being victimized, whether it's whatever, it's a fear, but we have to deal with the facts. Go ahead, Scott. I know you had something to chime in on.
Well, you know, this is my one thing. I got two things.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have started referring to people on planet Earth as Earthlings, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all in a macro scale are Earthlings.
Yeah.
Right? That makes me, you know, think about us being one. No matter if your family's from Morocco, you know, my family dates back on the Mayflower. I'm like 17 generations from the Mayflower Society. So I'm English and Irish and got a little Native American peppered in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, somebody that's, you know, from Japan or China or New Zealand, Australia, they're an Earthling too, right?
That's right.
Technically, every animal is an Earthling, right? We're all, you know, from a macro scale. And if you start, and that you can start getting into Buddhism with that type of stuff, how you don't kill animals and that type of stuff, right? And I think the end of the day, and it really boils down to whether or not you're a good human or not. No matter what religion, what country, color your skin, any of those things are, that all that matters is that if you're a good human. And saying what you're saying about, you know, like the law enforcement and those things, is that there are bad seeds in everything.
Exactly.
In every industry. Things that come to mind are Harvey Weinstein, right? That there's probably amazing people. And I worked in Santa Monica, was in Hollywood, you know, for a while, you know, going to church in Hollywood and things like that. It's just amazing people, super creative people.
Yep.
Bad seed. Right. Did a lot of bad things over a lot of years. And it was untouchable because of all his power and all those things. Even Mario Batali, celebrity chef, right? The Me Too movement, all the things like that.
Right.
I've gone in and replaced restaurant managers. People show up and go, here's your ski pass. And I'm like, you asked to speak to the general manager, here's your ski pass. I'm like, what do you mean ski pass? And I'm like, well, I was trading your predecessor for gift certificates for ski passes. So I said, I can't do that because that's not my money to give. The gift cards here are not mine to give away. That's legal tender to get food or beverage from this particular organization. And that's the owner's money. That's not mine. So there are bad seeds. And I went to the owner. I'm like, hey, this person's coming here saying that he wants to trade me gift cards for this. Do you know anything about it? No, I don't know anything about it. Don't do it. I'm like, I didn't do it. And I'm not going to do it because it's not my money to give away. It's your money, right? Right. To give away.
That's right.
So those are on three different levels. That's like, you know, Hollywood guy, celebrity chef guy, and then, you know, just a normal, average, everyday restaurant manager, right? You can see that there's bad seeds in everything. And
that's
so
right.
There's going to be bad cops. There's going to be bad people in the military, and there's going to be bad people who are out to get people in podcasting. And there's going to be, you know, and trying to sell there's going to be people who have never got a customer that have created this fake program on how to get customers for coaching clients and all this other stuff. Right. So you got to be really careful of those things. There are bad people everywhere. And if you grow up in big cities like you did, my wife grew up around New York, you guys are more prone to be able to pick those out than, you know, South Carolina guys like me who grew up trusting everybody. Right.
But you know what? No, I can't say that. I can't say that, Scott, because it's one thing I was always taught, and I believe this. It's a saying, and it's, you can't fool a believer and you can't fool a bullshitter. The reason you can't fool the believer is because the creator is not going to let you fool somebody that he knows believes, or I should say the overall, because I don't like to put a gender on the creator.
Right.
But that power will not allow its child to be fooled. Mm-hmm. Now, what it may do is it may say to, us, watch it. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's a good idea? Mm-hmm. All right, make the decision. And you'll make the decision. You get fooled. And now that's the creator's way of saying, now you know better.
Right.
But after a while, you get that, something ain't right. Something ain't right. Something ain't right, and you choose to listen to it or not. A bullshitter, hey, bullshits all the time. Knows what, sounds like something I would do. Sounds like something I would do. No. So I totally agree with you when it comes to that. It's learning about the balance of life, which is there's negative and positives, and we're going to have to continue to do that to progress. It's funny. You make me think of something dealing with a relative of mine. And I used to think about this all the time because his mom used to tell him, we would sit at the kitchen table and he would go off about his siblings and they're older and they're irresponsible. They don't do this. Why do you always cater to them? Blah, blah, blah. And I'll never forget his mom said, because some people need more than others.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there watching because, I'm privy to watching these things too. And I'm like, I don't know what they need because they get it. Right. And then a couple years go by and I'm sitting with my relative again. And he says, you know what? I get it. I said, you get what? He said, I get why my mom said that some people need more. He said, when I really pay attention to some of my siblings, I find that they can't function when it comes to certain things like I can. They can't take the long walk. They can't deal with the responsibility. They can't do it. He says, so yes, some people need more. He said, I get that. He said, so for me, he said, now I'm seeing it. It's up to me to be able to say, okay, now I'm not going to let them bullshit me, but I can at least tell them, look, don't come with the lies. And if you need something and I can do it, I'll do it. But don't come with the lies. And that's a power right there based on like apprehension and lies, Scott, dealing with it. It's when it really comes down to all of it, it's being able to understand yourself and how you're dealing with things and then relating it to others. We've talked about so much, but that's really the circle of everything we've discussed today. It's really about how do you relate of your purpose and yourself dealing with everything, right? Good, bad, poor, rich. How do you see yourself within that? Are you a good bacteria in the cosm of life? Right. That's like, well, look, I see you're not doing good. I'm going to help you. Or are you a virus? Well, I'm going to milk you for everything you have.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's really what it is. And, I think as human beings, as you were saying, we are given a beautiful choice. And the choice is that, what do you want to be? Where do you stand in this creation of life? What do you want to do? Right. So, I mean, I think that's a blessing.
It is, right? When you break it all down, right, there's so many things that are so similar. Like when you look at Buddhism, and it talks about, like respecting all life, right?
Yep.
And then you go and you read the New Testament of the Bible, and the great commandment says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Let's just take you and me, for example. Intermittent fasting, we pay attention to our diet, right? You're doing a bunch of pull-ups and work, moving a lot of weight. I'm moving and exercising. I'm standing up at a stand-up desk, keto for 5 years. You can see the books behind me on this side, They're all
Mhm.
cookbooks, Wall's Protocol, Ketotarian, the Wall's Cookbook, the Fiber Fueled, the Longevity Diet, right? I got all those things, right? So if I'm putting all those focus and learning all that, right, and taking care of myself on that level, how much love do you think I got to put out into the world?
That's right.
Right. And so it didn't say love yourself less than you love others. It said whatever you love yourself, reflect that out into the world. And if you love yourself a lot, you just got to give a lot of love, right?
That's right.
And so, there's so many similarities, no matter what practice religion you have. The spirituality of it is that have empathy, right? Notice your own, have this like super heightened sense of self-awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then have unconditional love for others, and then express empathy, because if you're aware where you are emotionally, you're going to recognize when that other person on the other side of the conversation, other side of the phone, other side of the text message, other side of the Zoom, or we're on StreamYard, is emotionally hijacked. And then you can help them. That's the reality they're living in. You can help them, keep from being over emotional, or what you maybe call overreacting, or those type of things. That's their perception of reality. That's where they are. It is a reality. You got to live with that.
That's right.
Empathy is the connecting piece, because if you put yourself in their shoes and go, well, if that would have happened to me, how would I feel? And we could talk about, the law enforcement piece of this, or, whatever. Like, I got fired from a job or furloughed from a job in March, right?
Right.
And so it's like, I have empathy for other people who've been furloughed. Right. So my live show today, we have a recruiter on, and we're talking about all the different benefits you can get by working with a recruiter to help you find a job or your next job. Right.
Right.
And those type of things, because so it really boils down to one common thread is empathy.
That's true.
In this whole thing, because if you can't have enough wherewithal, no matter what's going on in your life, to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, put them in their chair, their shoes, their moccasins, so to speak. Right.
Yeah.
So you definitely could have, you can connect with them and have an understanding and have a calm conversation with them, and everything can be better, because somebody may be upset. And this happened one time, to me, right? Maybe upset, we got busy at lunch at the restaurant. That was when I was a general manager of a restaurant. We got busy for lunch, and we filled up the main dining room. And it was just it was really an odd thing that we don't normally get that busy for lunch.
Right.
And we got busy enough that the main dining room was full, and a party of 6 came in, and the only table we had for 6 was in the back dining room. So they were the first table sat in that back dining room. And it happened to be a lady, a group of 6 ladies that were all African-American. I had to speak to the manager, which happened to be me. And they accused the hostess of seating them back there away from everybody else because they were a different race. That was their reality. I had to have empathy for where they were, right? I knew that the hostess didn't do that on purpose. I knew the mechanics behind, the logistics of the dining room, right? Mm-hmm. She had a choice to put them in one room or the other by themselves, because there was no other spot to give them in the main dining room that would seat 6 people. They were all full. Instead of making them wait for 30 minutes for another table got up, she sat them immediately, right? And because they were staying in the hotel, they were hotel guests and all those things, she sat them immediately, trying to get them sat, had it covered by a server that was out of section, all those things. But I instead of me going, you're all wrong, and it's like, this is just what happened logistically, blah, 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 to get over it, I had to make it right and put myself in their shoes. How would I feel if that happened to me?
Right.
I don't default to that, because, I just, it's not my default pattern, but I do recognize that I need to have empathy and do those type of, that type of things, that type of recovery. And as where I really use this process, I call it the herd method. Mm-hmm. I wrote a training manual on this for restaurant managers and people in hospitality. I'm going to convert this into a more general type book versus being more of a training manual. And it's titled Upset to Happy in One Conversation, and HERD stands for hear, empathize, apologize, resolve, and delight. Oh. Right.
Right.
And so in the restaurant world, there's this one encompassing word that when an instruction comes down with multiple things, to let the person who gave the instruction know that you, not only did you hear it, but you understand it, you would just say heard.
Hey, you with the earbuds in their ear. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? When I was trying to get my podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now Anchor can match you with great sponsors too, so you can get paid to podcasts. I like to upload my episodes directly to the app and then promote. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast, make money doing it. Go to anchor.fm/start to join me in the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. Hey everyone, we hope that you're enjoying the show thus far. If you would like to learn more about the De La Fit podcast and its host, Sun Moon Bay, then head over to www.delafitpodcast.com. There, you can subscribe to get alerts about upcoming shows and guests, as well as leave comments and questions. What's going on, everybody? I just want to take the time out to thank Scott for being a part of our show and our special guest for this week. It's always an exercise and an enlightening time whenever he comes to the show. No, I won't say that. What's going on, everybody? I just want to take the time out to thank Scott for being on the show this week. It's always a good time and always just a lot of fun being able to discuss things with him whenever he's on the show, and he's been on the show a lot. We're ending the actual interview here just because of our own show's time constraint. But if you want to hear the rest of the interview, you can actually tune in to the De La Fit podcast by going to our Instagram, which is at De La Fit, which is at day_la fit podcast. And you can tune in and watch the rest of the interview or hear the rest of the interview on our IGTV. So that is another way for you to hear the rest of the interview and listen to it and really see a lot of the conversations that we had right there. Just want to take this time to summarize and talk to all of you out there. So much has been taking place. So many new things have occurred within the show, and I'm so grateful to all of you listeners out there who have bared with us, whether it is from our move from one studio to another, whether it's our move to a studio and then back home because of the pandemic, and then vice versa. You all have stuck with us, and then you actually waited while we got the season ready for this new year, this 2021 year. So I'm super excited about that, and I'm just so happy that you are all going to be a part of this with us. The move to Roku television via the LPT network, Live, Thrive, and Prosper. Live, Prosper, and Thrive, it's a new step in a very, very advantageous direction in which we are growing this platform. And I'm just excited for everybody out there. So thank you so much, all of you who have supported us. The basic thing, the reason I created this podcast, the reason I started this platform is because I want to help change people's mindset when it comes to health. When it comes to health and fitness, or fitness and health. Because without fitness, without being fit, without being healthy, what type of life do you truly have? And in the Western world, we have long pigeonholed what fitness truly is. We need to expand upon that. We need to grow that mindset of just what being fit is. Again, it's not just the gym. It's not just push-ups. It's not just pull-ups. It's everything. Once we actually start to look at what true fitness is, what true health is, that's when we actually start to look and see what life is truly about. So that's why I'm so super amped up that we have been able to make the moves that we have. And we started in the backyard. We started in the backyard 2 years ago, and now we're on Roku television because of you. Thank you so much for all of your help out there, for everything that you've done for us. We are so super excited. As always, we have the new web. First of all, I got ready to summarize everything, but we have the new website up. If you want to get in touch with us, if you want to find out more about the De La Fit podcast, maybe this is your first time listening, or somebody told you about us, you saw us on Roku or something of that nature, go to our new and improved website, which is www.delafitpodcast.com. There, you can find out about the show. You can find out about myself. You can find out about a plethora of information. You can also leave comments, ask questions. We're there. We are there for you as well. Also, we are on every social platform that there is that we can think of at this time. We are on Facebook at De La Fit Podcast. We are also on Instagram at DE_LA Fit Podcast. So please, please, please feel free to reach out. We're also on Twitter. I forgot about that. So if you want to send us a tweet, you can tweet to us. But we are basically on every platform. Also, you can reach out to us on at our email, which is delafit13@gmail.com. So plenty of ways to contact us, but I think the website is going to be the best thing for everybody if you're interested. So do not be a stranger, my digital family. Please reach out, connect with us, build. This is what 2021 is about. We have dealt with the year of clarity. We have dealt with a lot of the things that have hit us time and time again. This is now the rebuild. We are rebuilding stronger, faster, more healthy, more fit in every way possible. That 360-degree circle. Join us for this. I'm so glad to be back with all of you. As always, please tune in and remember to treat yourself good. You have to treat yourself good. We don't treat ourselves good enough. We don't pat ourselves on the back nearly enough. And when I say pat yourself on the back, I mean really give yourself a chance to say, you know what? I've accomplished some good things. Don't rest on your laurels, but feel free to tell yourself that you've done some good things. And if you don't think you've done enough, put in the work. Find the people that'll help you work smarter, not harder. As always, please remember to love yourself. If you love yourself the right way, I know you are going to love others, because you'll learn to empathize with yourself. You'll learn to empathize and use those tools. Put together principles of action and stand by them. As always, be safe, be happy, be healthy. Peace.